Welcome to Tech Bites with Dan Hafner, your gateway to the future of innovation and technology. Dive into the exciting world of software where cutting-edge tech meets creativity. Explore no-code solutions that empower businesses to thrive without traditional barriers. Hear inspiring stories from tech pioneers and industry leaders who are changing the game. Join us on Tech Bites and transform the way you think about technology and business.
Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome back to the show. My name is Dan Hafner. We are back here today with another guest. His name is Joe Casabona, not to be confused with Casanova, as I don't know if he was a Casanova back in his day. We'll see. No, he's shaking his head now. But we're going to talk a lot about automation, guys. This is going to be really, really cool. Joe is a good friend of mine. We have met in person. I've not met a lot of the people that are actually on my show in person. We enjoyed cigars together down in Florida. Very, very cool guy. And he is also a fellow Pennsylvanian, which I love. So man, it's going to be a good time. So we're going to talk about some automation today. There's a lot of cool topics in today's day and age where, I mean, unless you live under a rock, you know that like AI and AI agents are like this new big thing. It's blowing up everywhere, especially for kind of us in the solopreneur space, creative space. It's both an exciting thing and also kind of a terrifying thing when you think about job replacements and go down that whole kind of rabbit hole and stuff. So it's a very, very interesting topic. I'm excited for you guys to be a fly on the wall and talk about this with Joe. So, Joe is gonna I'll let Joe introduce himself. I won't do him injustice by doing that. So welcome to the show, Joe. How are you, man?
Dan, I'm doing great. Thanks for that intro. I am always happy to meet both a fellow Pennsylvanian and a cigar smoker. I will say I'm originally from New York, but I do live outside Philly now, and I can do the accent pretty well. So if we want to get our regional accents going,
Yeah.
we can go over that later. But my kind of one-liner is I help busy solopreneur parents streamline their business so that they can spend less time checking their email on the playground. And as you alluded to, I do that through automations, building systems. I'm a former software engineer, and so I have that technical side in me, but I try not to do a lot of coding today because I don't want to give solutions to people who are going to have to go find somebody to support custom code for them. So I do a lot of no code things these days.
Well, you fit right into the show here because that's specifically what I do. So I love it. We're gonna have so much fun. So, yeah, man. So you had a pretty interesting backstory though. You got into this because of some crazy shit that kind of went down in your life. So give us the story about how that came about.
Yeah, so the pandemic, maybe some of you have heard of it, was a tough time for a lot of people. My wife is a nurse, and so and in particular an ICU nurse. Not that like at that time, I think basically everybody was an ICU nurse. Not to degrade what my wife and her coworkers do, but people were just very sick. And schools were closed, and I'm self-employed, and so I took up a lot of the responsibility of doing the stay-at-home dad thing and raising the kids while my wife went to work. But my business still was like over half of our income, and so there came a point in November where I just got really stressed. November was usually, quarter four is usually my biggest quarter because I got a lot of sponsorships for the following year, and money just wasn't coming in. And we had a 4-month-old and a 3-year-old, and it just all came to a head one day. I wasn't working on my business. I was stressed with the kids, and I had a panic attack. And I'm sitting on the floor in my kitchen crying, and my 3-year-old comes up to me and she says, "It's okay, Daddy. Everything's gonna be okay." And she hands me a bottle of water. And in that moment, I thought, this is not okay. Like, my daughter shouldn't be taking care of me. I have obviously done a poor job of managing my time in my business. And I knew I had to, that was the thing that made me realize, like, I need to change, right? For years before that, I was like, I should hire a VA. I should automate more. but that really changed me. And so the next week I hired a VA, maybe the next, within the next 2 weeks, I started the process the next week. And I started automating as much as possible. And I was like, anything that I personally don't have to do, I cannot do, so I won't do anymore. And fast forward a year later, all these systems I put in place, our third was born, and I was able to take 6 weeks off for paternity without worrying about the wheels coming off the business.
That's amazing. Like that's such an inspirational like graduation story there. I think because like there's a lot of like I've been in that spot, and there's still parts of my business where I'm like I'm stuck in that spot and trying to figure out how do I outsource? Do I use AI? Do I like what's the best kind of approach there? But that's a beautiful like just kind of story of like, okay, boom, you have this trigger. Okay, I gotta figure some shit out. Like I gotta get this I gotta get this going, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
Yeah, man.
Very, very like act one, act two, act three, right? And the act three is really important because I think we see a lot of people, a lot of influencer bros and stuff online saying, this is what you need to do, or this is what I'm doing. And then people see that and just assume it works. So it's really important for me to not just say, hey, here's what you have to do, or here's what I'm doing, but like, here's what I did, and here were the results. I think that's really important.
Yeah, 100%. I think, I think that's probably a better way to approach it with people like us because that's why we work for ourselves. Part of it's we don't like people telling us what to do. So,
Yeah,
so when you're
and
like, "Hey, do this," you're like, "Nah, you screw yourself." You know, like there's
yeah,
kind of
right.
like that little piece of it. You know?
Yeah, and like part of the problem is like you don't get the instant gratification if you have to wait for the results, right? It's
Hmm.
so much easier to just take what you're doing and brand it as building in public, so that you don't have to wait for the result.
How do you save time? How do you how can you like but why? Like why is it so important to because I could go down the rabbit hole of like okay, I want to save this time. I want to do this. I want to save okay, great. I can save 10 hours, 12 hours a week, but why? Why is that important?
Yeah, this is I saw a very timely post to help answer this question today. Nick Bennett is a guy on LinkedIn who talks to solopreneurs, and he basically said, "Hey, solopreneurs, he has found are motivated by two things, right? Build a business so that they have more, so that they are time rich, so that they can spend their life the way they want, or start a business to be actual money rich and make as much money as possible." And I think he put it really succinctly, and so I'm going to credit him. Uh, why do this stuff? Because there is only a finite amount of your own time and energy, and that's going to come with limits, right? I think, gosh, there's a book called The Mythical Man Month, and this is like it was like a project management programming book, and it talks about the myth of if you throw more resources at it, it will happen faster, right? There's going to be a point where you throw more resources at it, and you're going to see diminishing returns. And so, if you as a solopreneur say, all right, well, I'm making $10,000 a month now, so if I double the amount of work I do, I'll make $20,000 a month. That is a fallacy because your work is going to get less efficient. You won't be thinking as clearly and you'll burn out, and then you'll be making no money per month. And so the reason that you want to automate and delegate is to take the things off of your plate so you can focus on the stuff that really matters and then actually double or triple your income.
I love that, man. Like that's so I've had many thoughts like that of like, okay, I'm making X dollars per month and I want to make double that. So man, I just need to put in more hours. I need to just focus on more things. Um, and that's like you said that I love that. Like I need to check that book out. And so
It's an easy trap to fall into, right? Because like when you make like when you do a recipe, it's like makes 4 servings double to make 8, right? Like it's in the real world, that kind of makes sense, right? If I buy double the amount, I'm gonna have to pay double the money. But like when it comes to energy management and productivity, it can't work like that.
Yeah, I could actually share a little story that comes to mind about that. So I've told you I make my own wine. That's been my new hobby. I have a batch of blueberry coming out, hopefully for 4th of July. That should be pretty awesome.
Ooh, nice.
Never made that flavor before, but the first time I ever made a batch of wine, I got a recipe from my friend, like a little kit, and it was for making 1 gallon. You could make 15 1 gallon mixtures, right? That was what
Hmm.
it was for. And I had never made wine before, and I was like, hey, you know what? I'm gonna make 5 gallons of strawberry wine because why make just a gallon? I don't want like that doesn't seem worth it to me. See where I'm going with this?
Yeah.
So I made it, and turns out like I literally for some reason, and I'm not the greatest math guy. I'll be the first to admit that. But for some reason, I was like, okay, I should take this much. That converts to 5 gallons. That should be okay. I should have it figured out. By the time I got everything in there that I thought I needed in a 5 gallon bucket, it was overflowing. Like I didn't even have it was it just it didn't work, and it was just a terrible mess, and I made my entire basement floor sticky for like a month. And but there's a good analogy with that is and I've done this before in my businesses where and I know you and I've talked about this before, is like you go through something and you think, oh man, I should automate this. I do it once and I'm like, this can be automated. But that's not always like the case, right? Like is there a process you go through to think, okay, this is something that I should automate versus something that I shouldn't?
Yeah, so I do have a whole framework for this. I'm working on the name. I want to call it the playground process, but I feel like that's too clever by half, you know? Like I just want to it needs to be clear. But I do have a process for this. I will say like yeah, I have the toxic trait of like I do something once and I can automate it. And I would say like don't generalize unless it needs to be generalized, right? Like if you're only make sure you're going to do it more than once before you because there's time up front, right? The point of automation is investing a little extra time up front to save you a lot of time on the back end. And if you're only going to do it once, just do it once really quickly. So the framework here for determining what to automate is first you got to get in the right mindset. I think a lot of people struggle. This is like going from 0 to 1. I can't automate this. It's too complicated, or I can't delegate this. Only I can do what I do, right? And so you need to tell yourself, I am not that special. Other people can do what I do. There are really sophisticated tools. The tools today are much more sophisticated than when I started automating in like 2017, right? And so people can do the things I do. What I am needed for is my voice, my point of view, and my expertise. If a task doesn't require that, I don't need to do it. So then you get to the planning part, and this is where or the document part, you document everything that you do in a day. Keep a pen and paper handy, or just like spend some time writing out all the things you do. And then you have a list of generally everything. Like there'll be one-off things here and there, but generally everything that you have to do for your business. Put a check mark next to the things you need to do and an X next to the things you don't. And again, hot tip, the things that you have to do should be far fewer than the things you don't have to do. Other way around. The things you don't have to do should be um, a lot more than the things that you personally have to do, right? There should be way more X's than checks. Then we get into the sorting or bucket side of things. So if you're trying to figure out if you can automate this, usually what I say is it a simple decision making exercise? So are the inputs always or almost always the same? I've had to change this to almost always thanks to AI agents. Are they always or almost always the same? Is the output always or almost always the same? If that is the case, then you can automate it. But if it requires some sort of critical thinking, it probably or like a complicated process, it probably requires a human being. So like for me, one thing that I like to automate is my shutdown routine. So I leave my desk, and at the end of the day, I word vomit into a transcription app. Right? It's whisper memos usually. So I will just say everything on my mind in whisper memos. Then Whisper Memos sends that to a Zapier webhook. Zapier catches it and sends it to ChatGPT with a very long prompt that basically says, take this, create a comma separated list of everything I said I had to do, send that comma separated list to Todoist as a list of tasks. And so the input is always the same. It is word vomit, basically.
I
The
love
output
that.
is always the same. But publishing my podcast, that process changes frequently based on like the platforms that are going on and things I'm testing. And there are multiple places where things need to happen, and each one is a little different. And so my VA does that.
I love that. I'm probably going to steal that one. That's a really cool one. But well, so this is amazing, and this is kind of where I was like leading this to, is because I think a lot of stuff in this day and age's culture is it's how can I scale this? How can I as this solopreneur, how can I as this one man one woman operation scale? Because let's be real, like everyone, like the sexy stories out there, the ones you see on social media or whatever, are, oh, they scaled to 30K MRR a month in 4 months, or they scaled to 100 million in funding in 3 years, or like whatever the case might be. And and that's, I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, but that's where I think people get into this automation stuff too fast. Like I have clients all the time. They're like, okay, that's the beauty of building software, is that it can automate some things that need to be automated, like such as client onboarding, or, like this entire SaaS product, right? But there's also parts of it where there's almost parts, like we've had a lot of times where it's like, hey, let's build this API call that connects this to this and then does this, kind of like you were just talking about, this whole shutdown routine that you have. But we also like took a step back and looked at the analytics, and we're like, how many times does this actually happen in like a given year or a given month? And it might be one time, it might be whatever. So is it maybe easier up front to build that, but it's also a heavy lift to build that thing up front. But then if it's just a manual thing on the back end and it takes somebody 2 seconds to do, is it worth it? Is it like, because there's this whole big thing of like, I want to nail it and scale it, right? This Russell Brunson thing of like, nail it and scale it. But a lot of people don't nail it before they scale it. So then you get like all this technical debt that's out there. And then it's just like, you understand where I'm going with this?
Yeah. I mean, it's the tell the story before the results thing again, right? Because when this startup scaled to millions of dollars in 3 months or whatever, where's that startup a year later, right? Like most startups that get venture funding fail because they run out of money. And every time I see that, I'm just like, if only there was a way for startups to make money. What? Like, wow, right? And so like it's the purpose matters. And if you're not thinking about the purpose for what you're doing this stuff for, then like it kind of doesn't really matter how you do it. Nathan, I was at Craft and Commerce shortly before this recording, and something Nathan Barry said really resonated with me. And he said, if the thing you're doing doesn't light you up, doesn't spark your interest, if it's not something that ignites you, I think was his actual word, then it's not worth doing, because you're not going to show up authentically, and you're not going, and you're, in my head, that just means like you're an interloper or an imitator. And so if you're trying to imitate someone's success without understanding why they're successful, it's not, you can build all the widgets, all the automations, hire as many people as you want. It's not going to work.
Yeah, and I think one thing you said just a minute ago too is really, really sparked a thought in me, is like what you said around where, okay, that's great that startup got this level or whatever, or this agency did this, but where are they a year later, right? And I think that's one of the biggest shifts in my life over the past couple of years, has been, okay, how do I how do I make things sustainable? Like, I remember going down this path of like, okay, if you want to have new habits in your life, addition over subtraction, right? Don't, if you want to cut out sugar, it's best to just add something healthier into your diet rather, so like that kind of whole thing. So, but I applied that in my business and I applied that in my life. And then I found like I was so busy doing 900 things, but then I also have, like you said, my wife's in the NICU. She's an ICU doctor as well. So like I'm doing a lot of the home stuff, but like there's 9 million things to do every day. Like that wasn't sustainable for me. Right. So I got to this point where I was like, okay, I think automation really plays into this idea of sustainability, right? And I'm not talking about like, climate change, that kind of stuff. I'm talking about like business sustainability, personal sustainability. What? Yeah, without getting to the point like you said where you have this panic attack in front of your daughter and you break down and you're like, oh shit, I need to change stuff, right? Like, how do we try to avoid that by making and I think that's where like automating certain things, outsourcing certain things, going this like thing, it leads to that, to where, okay, I don't have to worry about these 900 million things on my plate today. I have to worry about these 4 or these 6, and that's way more sustainable.
I have what I think is an exceptional memory, right? Like I have vivid memories of things that happened long ago, and as far as I can tell, I'm remembering them accurately. But people are like, how do you remember so much? And I say, I don't remember most things. I capture them and put them somewhere else, right? So like that shutdown routine helps reduce the clutter in my brain, right? Because usually what's happening is if I have to pick my kids up at 3 o'clock from school, I am working until 2:45. And it takes me 5 minutes to get to the school, but like traffic, what happened, I just want to get there. I want to be there. And so I'm working. I get a reminder in Due. DUE is a great app because it's just like persistent reminders so that you can't say don't bother me about this again unless you check it off the list, right? And so like Due is a great reminder for me for pick up the kids. It's never had to remind me more than once, but I'd rather have that system in place. And so like when I get a reminder from Due, I go, I have to leave. I could be in the middle of something. I could be wrapping something up or starting something new. Either way, there's what I call open threads in the back of my brain. And so that shutdown routine helps me just dump out everything into eventually Todoist so that I have a list to look at in the morning of what was I working on. And then similarly, I'm less frustrated when I'm with my kids and I'm more present because I'm not thinking about the things I didn't do, right? I've captured those things. And
Yeah.
so that's, you mentioned that people are talking big things and everything's amazing and look at this future. And I had an experience like that recently where like we were going around the room saying how we were using AI, and people are talking about digital doppelgangers and cloning yourself and being able to do like synthetic audience research instead of having to talk to real people. And then we get to me and I'm like, guys, I'm just trying to make my day easier. And I tell them that shut down. I'm like, I'm just out here trying to make my life a little bit. I'm not thinking about big future digital doppelganger. I'm thinking, how do I make it so that I don't go insane and forget everything I had to do? And so that for me, and I think for a lot of solopreneurs, is really where you can move the needle, is just by getting rid of that mental clutter and taking small things off of your plate so you no longer have to do or think about them, right? And I'll say one more thing here. I don't know if that got edited out, but you mentioned lawnmowers. I have somebody mow my lawn. I live in a twin house. We share a yard. I have a 1/4 acre. It would take me 30 minutes to mow my lawn. Probably. I have the worst equipment on the planet, so maybe it takes me a little longer. But like the fact that I pay somebody $35 a week for me to not just not have to mow my lawn, not even think about if my lawn is going to get mowed this week. Just don't think about it.
Mm-hmm.
It's really nice, and it's totally worth $35 because my billable rate is way more than $70 an hour, and So it's really an opportunity cost thing. It's one less thing I need to worry about.
Yeah. Yeah, I have not gone down that route yet. We do have a house cleaner finally, which is that was one thing that was just getting way out of hand for me. It was just like how like it was just like every weekend was just like, okay, I want to do other things, but this house is like a disaster, and we don't have any kids yet, so I'm like just like how am I going to do this? You
I,
know?
can I fill you in on a secret? We had a house cleaner for a while, but they got worse. I think they started putting like their worst people because they got like some commercial contracts. But like it almost doesn't matter when you have kids
Mm,
because like the house is, we have a sunroom and like it doesn't matter if we clean that. 10 minutes later, it's just going to be a complete disaster.
yeah.
And for like the bedrooms and stuff like that, it's definitely worth it. But like, I read one of my favorite Ryan Holiday quotes is like, a messy house is a fun house. Like you worry about keeping the sunroom clean, but your kids are having fun, and that's what they're gonna remember when it get choked up. It's such a good quote. And so like,
Yeah.
but
Yeah, that's good.
that said, someone who cleans your house for you is amazing, and like we should probably get it back, but just keep the sunroom off limits because that doesn't make sense.
Yeah, but it goes along with what you're saying, you know what I mean? So, but yeah, and I think that that's one takeaway that I have that maybe someone else out there listening would be able to take away is like, don't feel ashamed if you like, if that's all you're using AI for. Like you said, like there's all these big sexy stories out there of how these people are, just using technology to like at the highest levels in the world. It's like that's cool, but if you can use something to just like you said like declutter your mind from all of the
Mhm.
different things going on, that's massive. Like be proud of that. Like that's a really awesome takeaway. I think I'm curious, what was the reaction in that room when you shared that? Did you get a lot of like eye rolls? Was it like a lot of
No,
like
it was great. It was great. Like
that's
people were
awesome.
like, because like with a lot of the other people, it was like they couldn't visualize how they could implement that, right? But with mine, people are like that is a very clear use case. I want to steal that. Like, can you share that template with me? And I'm like, it's in my automations database. Like, so yeah. So like a lot of people were like, yeah, that makes perfect sense. And like the big system is interesting and there are a lot of interesting use cases. I do worry that I don't know how to read a map. I don't know how to read a map because I've never had to read a map. I've had MapQuest or Yahoo Maps, and then I've had turn by turn directions on my phone. And I worry that for someone who uses AI to do all of their critical thinking and writing and whatever, like, what happens if AI goes away? What happens
Mm,
if you lose power? Are you just like, uh, are you just like an empty vessel, right? Like, are you just you don't know what to do because you haven't critically thought in years because you outsource that to AI? And so like I try to avoid the big sexy and I try to implement the practical. What's going to help me do my job better today? Because the other thing is like AI is changing so fast. It's
yeah, and I
ridiculous.
mean, even think about if YouTube went away. You know, like you said, if power was out and I couldn't YouTube how to like fix my shower when it breaks or my sink when it
Right.
like luckily my dad's still alive and he comes down and he helps me with a lot of stuff. But when he's gone someday, like who
Yeah.
am I gonna call? Ghostbusters? Like, no, I'm not. You know what I mean? So, yeah, no, I've had that thought too of like how does that? I mean that's a different conversation for a different day. But I get what you're saying is like be careful about how like I have to be careful about like what I'm having even ChatGPT do for me at times of like, hey, respond to this email, kind of whatever thing, because I it's good to think through some things at times. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So, but anyway, I want to.
Whereas like if my shutdown automation went away tomorrow, like I still have pen and paper. I still have a plain text file on my computer, right? Like the process is still there and just like the medium changes
Right,
or
the
the
medium
the
changes.
yeah.
Well, speaking of mediums, I wanted to ask you about that. So, can you give us maybe some ways, some again, maybe some more use cases, some tools you're using in the AI agents world? I'm curious. Like, is there any other cool like little templates or tools that you use that you might be able to share with us? That because I'm very interested in this AI agents stuff. I've been diving into this more and more and been setting up more of them. But I'm just curious what you're using.
Yeah, so I've been pretty hesitant to use AI agents for two reasons. One is that marketing departments have stolen that word, and like they're just like rebranding their chatbots as agents, and like it's not the same. It's like how every cell phone company started using 4G and 5G before. For those who don't know, 4 and 5G stand for fourth generation and fifth generation, and there are upload and download speeds associated with those. Like it's a standard. It's not, and Verizon and AT&T stole it for marketing purposes, which is why now we have like 5G Ultra, right? So like this started happening with AI agents. And so and the other thing is like for an AI agent to properly work, right? Because the promise of a real AI agent is like you tell it to do something, it figures out the things it needs to do and then goes and does them at possibly completely different services. And so I hadn't touched them until I was having a conversation with my friend Adam Walker, and I was talking through one of my automations, right? Oh, I upload a file, or I upload an audio file to Dropbox. Zapier then takes that and sends it to ChatGPT to transcribe it. The transcribe it gets put through a prompt, and then it puts a LinkedIn post that sounds a lot like me into a Notion database. And he goes, are you using an agent for that? And I'm like, what do you mean? And he's like, you just built a traditional automation. And I'm like, yeah. And then he showed me the AI, like the Zapier agent interface. And so that is where I'm starting, right? Zapier is the perfect use case for an AI agent because you've granted it access to a lot of services already, right? Like Google possibly too, right? Because Google has its hands in everything. And if you've authenticated on a website with Google, Google has access to that. And so like maybe Gemini's AI agents will or can be good. But that like, I don't think my use of AI agents will change, or I don't think my use of automations will change that much because right now my automations are like Rube Goldberg machines of steps and conditions. And now I can essentially turn that into 2 sentences in an AI agent. So like that's where my head's at, right? We're not at the promise that we saw at WWDC 2024, where you would say, "Hey assistant," I won't activate everybody's phones. "Hey assistant, when's my mom getting here?" And then it goes and looks up mom, like it sees what mom's name is and looks up mom's flight, figures out when it lands, determines how long it takes to drive to your house from the airport, and gives you a time. We're nowhere close to that. But we are close to, hey, I use all of these tools. Let's make them work harmoniously.
Yeah, no, because I think about like that airport example, right? What if the baggage claim gets stuck and she's stuck there an hour waiting for a bag? What if she runs into somebody she hasn't seen since high school and ends up talking to her for 30 minutes? Like there's so many things that AI just won't be able to use or to be able to anticipate. But that makes a lot of sense. There's one tool I've been using recently. I saw promoted. It's called
Can I guess?
Lindy.ai.
Oh, okay. That's not what I was going to guess.
What were you gonna?
Multiple people have told me about N8N recently.
Yes, that's another one I've seen.
Yeah.
Yes. But Lindy.ai, it looks like it's almost like a smarter Zapier. It's like it's got the same interface of like exactly how Zapier works, kind of top to bottom, but it just has different AI agents and stuff in it. I haven't dabbled much with it, but from the looks of it, it looks like something that I'm gonna be leaning into. It looks really really cool. But yeah, like you're exactly right. I think there's just you already use all these different tools in your tech stack if you're running any kind of thing, and to be able to kind of just smartly integrate those and that's why I've always said, like, I always tell people when I on other shows when I interview or anything like that, they're like, yeah, we're gonna use Zapier or whatever, and I'm like, hey, a good friend of mine said Zapier makes you happier, and I was like, that's right. Joe.
Hey, hey.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
Very cool.
That's it. And I'll say like I think I like this shift. Like like at least right now, AI agent sounds just like a synonym for automation because it kind of is. And again, that's not the promise, right? The promise is like In 2011, I wrote a blog post saying in just a few years, we're not going to need wallets, right? Everything's going to be done from our phone. We'll book our Disney vacation from our phone. We'll book our flights from our phone. We'll tap our phone to a ticket thing at the airport. We'll tap our phone to check into our room and get into our room. We'll tap our phone to pay for stuff. And it took 12 years longer than I expected, but we're there now, right? Like you scan your phone or you tap your phone and you basically don't need your wallet anymore. Like even digital passports are now a thing,
I
right? And the
haven't used my
TSA
wallet in years.
right. And like the TSA accepts digital identification now, right? So like I think soon we will be in a world where I say, "Hey ChatGPT, I want to book a vacation to Cabo San Lucas around these dates. This is my budget. Do it." I'm confident we'll get there. Probably 12 to 15 years from now, right? And so today, like AI agents are automations rebranded. It makes more sense, I think, because this is like we're telling the computer exactly what to do and how we want it done. And it's just in a different flavor than what we've done for the past 20 years.
Well, that's interesting, man. So I know you mentioned some stuff before we were starting, and you mentioned a little bit of the no code stuff. I'm curious, just before we end, I want to get your thoughts. You said you've been doing a little bit of vibe coding recently. What kind of projects you've been working on?
Yeah, so there have been a couple now, but like the one that convinced me it worked is because I have my master's in software engineering. I was a WordPress developer since 2004. WordPress started in 2003. So like I've been with WordPress a long time. I've written books on WordPress. And I'm telling you all this because for a long time I was like, vibe coding, probably not as good as hiring a developer. And then I got into a pinch because I had a client I don't do a lot of web development anymore, but I will do it for nonprofits I believe in. There's an organization locally called Sail Beyond Cancer where they help people who are going through chemotherapy just kind of relax, go out on a sail and relax for the day, or they'll do memorial sails as well. And so really I appreciate this organization, and they needed a web portal. And I was like, oh, this is easy, WordPress, clickety click, it'll be done. Quoted a 20-hour project. When I got in there, I realized that there were a lot of assumptions that I made, as well as a few ChatGPT hallucinations. Because I was like, I can do this with this thing, right? And it's like, totally. And I'm like, cool. Confirmation bias, done. And then I was like, oh my gosh, I can't do half the things without code that I thought I could. And I thought, well, my thought is that I'm going to have to go back to the client and say, hey, it's actually going to take me like double or more, 2.5 times, as long as I think it's going to take. Or say like, hey, we actually need a bunch of premium plugins, like, so we're going to blow our budget. But then I was asking ChatGPT a bunch of questions, like, do you want me to like code something up for you really quick? And I'm like, yeah, let's see what you got. And boy, let me tell you, from there, it coded, with my vibes, 2,000 lines of nearly flawless code. Like, I am so impressed. And I texted my friend and I was like, dude, if I was a junior developer today, I'd be a little nervous. Just like a little nervous, right?
Mm-hmm.
And like, I'm sure junior developers will be able to take this tool and use it to their advantage. But like, if you just want to be like a code monkey, you can't anymore. And so like that was the thing that convinced me. Now I have a few ideas for like quizzes I want to do, and like there's this like this game app, like a spinner game, not like a video game app I want to try, and just like a couple of web scrapers. But I will say, like, so that was ChatGPT. I tried Claude. That was not as good. Like Claude was like, oh, we can do this thing, just put your API key here, and it was in like plain text JavaScript. And I was like, should I put my API key in plain text on the web? And it's like, no, good catch. And I'm like, this is where it still requires knowledge, right? Because like a non-programmer likely would not have caught that, right? Or a non-technical person would have been like, okay, I'll just do what ChatGPT told me or Claude told me to do. So it's been really interesting. I'm not convinced that with vibe coding you can get a fully functional thing without the guidance of a programmer or a software engineer, right? Like somebody guiding it and having the know-how and making little fixes here and there. My friend said he used Lovable to build a site, and he's like, it did perfectly what I would have charged $30,000 for, and I believe he believes that, but I don't believe that yet. So like it's incredible. It saved my butt on that client project. And I do a lot of vibe coding now. But I will caveat it with all of the bona fides that I just mentioned, right? Like software engineering, books, 20 plus years of programming. And I'm taking that and I'm like downloading that knowledge into whatever to get the thing I need to get.
That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, just to add my 2 cents, I have been using some of those tools to actually, I've actually tried to replicate some of the tools that I've built, either for myself or for my clients. And I got to be honest, it has yet to prove viable for me yet. Because I heard about these things and I was like, oh shit, I need a new business model. So I'm going to be out of business pretty soon. But it's going to get better. But I've not been able to replicate a fully functional, super complex SaaS project like we've built, even using like simple no code tools like Bubble or something like that. Fully, it's really been. It would have just taken me just as long to just build the stupid thing,
Gotcha.
But it's interesting to see where it's heading. It really is.
I think it's really good for solopreneurs, small businesses, independent people looking for little utilities, right? Like so for example, I don't know if you're familiar with the app SpeakPipe. It's a way for podcasters to get voice messages for their show. And it's a really simple interface. You hit record, it allows you to record depending on your payment plan. You can accept a certain number per month or a certain number of minutes per recording. And I just don't use it enough to want to pay a monthly subscription for it. And it is simple enough that I am convinced I can vibe code a close facsimile. And
That's the winner right there.
yeah.
Replacing all of these other tools that you have subscriptions for just like that.
Yeah.
That's where these
And
things are awesome.
it's a shame because I get really frustrated when the Notions and Clarity Flows of the world do feature bloat for the sake of adding features. But like what people probably just heard when I explained this was you can't be a single feature app anymore because someone will just vibe code their own version of it. And so it's like I don't have a solution to this. It's we're in a weird place. I'm also aware that like building software requires support and like a part of this was like the thing I need to integrate next is Dropbox integration. And like if Dropbox changes its API in 6 months, I'm building a tool that relies on that and because of my background I can support it, but like my wife can't vibe code something and then realize it's broken and have to support it. So like my wife would fully admit that. I'm not denigrating my wife in any way. And so like we're just in a very weird space. And I think like, yeah, little utilities. This is I'm like, I don't want to walk back what I said, but like I happily pay for software I use every day. Flighty is an amazing app for travel. I could pay $250 one time, but I have paid $50 for the last 5 years because I want to support that development. It is so good. So
What's it
like
called
I
again?
want to support good software, but like for software I barely use, I don't want to have to pay monthly for it or worry about canceling it, use it once and cancel it. Like that's a crazy thing to me. I do that with streaming services, and that's just like, why do I have to remember to cancel now because I wanted to watch binge this one show and then not keep paying for it? So like, I don't know. I said a lot of things there. I guess take what you want from it.
Yeah, and just to add my 2 cents with it too, I think you hit the nail on the head with support. I think like that's the one thing I've learned in being in technology for so long is that, I mean, you could start up anything. Like the other big hot thing these days are these micro SaaS, right? Like a micro SaaS, something small to get 100 people to sign up at $10 a month. Boom, you got a little business, right? I think that those are definitely still going to be a useful thing, like you said, because if you can create something that's that awesome for people and they're like happy to be like, well, you can pay $100 one time, but like I want to see you grow this into a big thing. Like that's a really, really interesting thing. But I know but like you said, and you could build a single tool and turn it into an entire business that could make tons of money and support employees, and you could have an office with it one day, all from like one little technology product, right? And and what I'm saying is like technology is a business. When you start an app, people think that I'm just going to like build this thing and put it on the app store, and then it's just going to blow up and it's going to be successful and I'm going to be awesome. But there's bug fixes, there's improvements, there's UI stuff, there's so many, there's compliance, there's all kinds of different things that go into this that yeah, you could vibe code to get started, but then like, okay, now I want to go do this. I want to like, how am I going to maintain this kind of thing? So there's a lot more that goes into it.
You can vibe code a prototype, right?
Yeah.
Like, and it'll be amazing. But to your point, Overcast was the podcasting app I used for years, and I happily supported development for years. And I think, Marco Arment's a great developer. He's super smart. He's done a lot of great things. I think that happened with Overcast, though. Like, I think he fell into a lull and then like rebuilt it from the ground up. But like the straw that broke the camel's back for me there was he said he's raising the price. Fine. Like he's never raised the price before, right? So like $10 a month to $15 a month for an app I use for hours every day is fine for me. But then he's also like, he's been public about not wanting to support podcast 2.0 features because no one's asking for them. And I get that, but I want those. And so like, if you're not going to do them and you're raising the price, I'm going to bounce. Right. And so like now I use Pocket Casts.
Makes sense.
But like when an iOS app doesn't have the new features that Apple announced at WWDC come September, like I install the public beta on my phone because I live dangerously. Because I want the latest and greatest features as soon as they come out. And if like an app I use like doesn't have like lock screen widgets or like the MLB app, God almighty, right? It annoys me. And like you just like can't vibe code your way into understanding your users and keeping up with the latest stuff, right? Like you can't just say like, hey ChatGPT, listen to WWDC, go find the APIs and add that to my app. At least not yet. Maybe in 15 years.
Yeah. Makes sense, man. All right. Well, this has been a very, very awesome podcast. We actually went way over like what I usually do, but this is no problem, man. This is really, really good stuff. So, well, hey, man, if anybody wants to connect with you or you got anything to offer us, as the listeners, what can we do?
Yeah. So, assuming this doesn't come out in the next 2 minutes, you can head over to casabona.org/Dan. And you can get access to my 40 automations database plus AI swipe file. So it's all in one Notion thing. And then like the only social network I'm on really is LinkedIn. So you can find me over there. But yeah, that is, I like positioning it as hey, if you need ideas for what you can automate, this is perfect, right? Don't feel like you need to automate all 40 of them or even half of them. Just be like, hey, Joe is sending things from this to that. I wonder if I could send things from my this to that, right? So like, it's a really good resource for ideation.
That sounds awesome. Thank you so much for that, man. We really appreciate that. We'll have the link for you guys in the show notes here. Awesome, man. Well, this has been really, really fun. Thank you so much for joining, Joe. Love to have you back someday. But yeah, hope you guys got a lot of value from this. All right. Thanks, Joe. All right. We'll catch you guys in the next episode. See you next time.
Thanks for tuning in to Tech Bites, your go-to show for software business and technology. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button to stay updated with our latest episodes, insights, and stories. Hungry for more? Dive deeper into the world of no-code by visiting dapanacode.com. Your journey to building amazing software without coding skills starts there. Connect with like-minded creators and unlock a world of resources tailored just for you. Subscribe now. Explore Dapper No Code and let's innovate together.